Well, I think the residents should be concerned. It's more really being aware of wildfires in the area. Traditionally, Western Washington didn't see a lot of wildfires, and we've seen over the past 4 or 5 years that that has increased. And particularly alarming was last year. We saw the Sumner Grade Fire down in Buckley and Sumner down there. That was probably one of the biggest urban interface type fires that Western Washington has had. So I think there's an increasing awareness of the wildfire season during the summer in Western Washington. And I think particularly concerning for people after last year is the urban interface aspect of it. So I don't ever tell people to be overly concerned about stuff, but they need to be very aware and be thinking about, always thinking about how they can prevent things. That's the best way, is how do we prevent stuff from happening? But definitely be aware. And then it's definitely a heightened concern in Western Washington with the summers, that's for sure. Well, in general, residents in Western Washington can, they can reduce any of the opportunities for fires to start. That's the biggest thing. Fires will start either by nature, meaning lightning strikes or something like that. Very uncommon in Western Washington. Most fires are started man-made or by accident. One example in the urban interface of a common way that fires get started is people that in the summertime, a lot of barbecuing going on, people dump their briquettes out into areas that they shouldn't. Those should be dumped into metal containers, not into backyards. We've had situations where people will dump their briquettes out on the edge of their backyard to get them away, and then that's in the bark or the leaves, something like that, catching on fire. So, prevention is the biggest thing. You can, in like the Issaquah Highlands, you don't have a lot of trees per se, right? In the Highlands, you have a lot of trees surrounding. So, for those people that live on the edge of the woods, it's keeping a good safe distance between you and the trees. Keep things clean. But really the biggest thing that people can do in prevention wise is just keep things clean around their house. If you're in and around the trees, make sure that the limbs don't grow too low to the ground. That's how fires get started, and then they climb up the tree. But the biggest thing is just keep stuff cleaned up around your house, junk, garbage, things like that, so that if there by chance is some sort of fire that does start, you don't have a lot of fuel available for the fire to burn. So that's really the key component, is keeping things clear and clean around your house. So preparing in advance for a wildfire specifically, it can be a little bit of a challenging, because in a wildfire situation, you're either going to want to stay in your house or you're going to be asked to evacuate, is one of the two things that typically happens. So in the Issaquah Highlands, one of the situations you run into is the number of people and access getting out of the Highlands if there was a big fire up there. So it's always good to be thinking about, if we have to leave immediately, what things do we want to have that we want to take with us? It doesn't mean you have to have them all packed up, ready to go every summer, but at least be thinking of that. Think about your way that you're going to get out. Think about your neighbors as well too. If you've got neighbors that are elderly or disabled, make that list with contacts and stuff like that, that if you do have to evacuate, you can make contact with them. It's all part of being a good neighbor there. But the biggest thing is, if there's an emergency, just to stay calm. And if you're asked to evacuate, you're going to be done. That would be done through reverse 911 in the county. They may call everybody up, say there's a wildfire in your area. You're at a certain level of evacuation. You need to evacuate immediately. And depending upon the levels of evacuation, you may be asked to be prepared to evacuate. The next level would be you're asked to evacuate, and then the highest level is you're required to evacuate. Okay, but just be thinking about what things you would take with you if you have to leave. That's the biggest thing to do, is just be prepared and think about it. We've recognized the problem of the urban interface in dense areas for years. And so it's always been a concern for us, and certainly we can talk about our wildland team and some of the things we've done to prepare for that. But our biggest concern is what we saw happen last year down in the Sumner Grade Fire, where a fire starts in the brush or in the woods or grass, and then the wind drives it into those densely packed areas. And what we saw last year in Sumner, and I've seen this in California on my many trips down there, is one house will catch fire, and then the wind is blowing and it blows embers and catches another house on fire, and then you've got a bunch of houses that catch on fire, and that can become a huge problem. So we have a huge concern with the urban interface and in the summertime, and how it can start and how it can burn into houses. But an even bigger concern is the house-to-house fires. And those are caused predominantly when there's a big wind, particularly if you get an east wind coming down out of the mountains. That's a really hot, dry wind. And if something catches fire, it can blow it into 1, 2, 3 dozens of houses in a matter of minutes. It can go very fast. And so that's a huge concern for us. I really can't stress enough for people just to be aware. Do anything you can to prevent fires. I mean, that's really the key component. If you can prevent a fire from starting, it won't turn into anything of any substance. And so, keep places clean. If you do live on the edge of the woods, be aware of that. Don't do things that might cause a fire to start, and just be aware and be prepared is the biggest thing.